All right, so for more on this, we're now joined by the CEO of Weaver Investment Management, Owen Khumalo, who joins me now live via Skype. Hi, Owen, good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming through.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
All right, so just before we look at that policy review, let's just reflect on the 6 years it's been for the Reserve Bank Governor, Ntatele Kganyago, of course. Today being his 6th anniversary, he was appointed on this day 6 years ago.
Yeah, I think he's done well overall in his 6-year tenure. I've particularly liked the way he has approached the independence of the Reserve Bank and the way he stood up to the politicians in terms of making sure that the independence of the Reserve Bank is recognized and is not compromised. He's done well. And I think also particularly what the Reserve Bank has done during this COVID-19 pandemic, which is, I think in times of crisis, that's when you get to measure the mettle of a man. And cometh the hour, cometh the man. The Reserve Bank Governor led his team in a very coordinated and timely response and meaningful response to this pandemic. So overall, I'm quite impressed with the work that he has done in the last 6 years. As I say, more particularly in the last 6 months. Yeah. Or so as we grapple with this pandemic.
All right. So a tumultuous time it's been for him for the past few months or so, you say. So let's just get your take on this monetary policy review that was being delivered today. What stood out for you?
I think what stood out for me is, as I said, the Reserve Bank has actually come to the party, and they've done quite well in terms of the responses that they've provided to provide liquidity and to support the markets. Now, if you look at a basket of 18 emerging market economies, and you look at how South Africa has fared during this pandemic, so if you look at the fiscal stimulus response out of the 18 countries, South Africa had the largest, and quite interestingly, out of the BRICS countries, only Brazil had a higher response in terms of the size of the stimulus, despite the fact that South Africa is actually a smaller counterpart in the BRICS group compared to the likes of China and India, and we actually provided, comparatively in size, we provided higher stimulus package than some of our BRICS counterparts and the rest of those 18 countries in that emerging market basket. If you look at the policy rate cut, which is what the governor said a few moments ago, is that out of those 18 countries, again, South Africa had the largest cut, just behind Mexico in terms of the 275 basis points of interest rate cuts that we have seen. So from a response point of view, stimulus package tick, they did well, given our size and given the challenges that we already have as a country. From a rate cut point of view, they've done very well in terms of providing the second largest rate cut in that 18 country basket of emerging market economies. But the challenge is, I think, where people are looking at results, they say, okay, we want to see that, does that translate into economic growth? Unfortunately, again, out of those 18 countries, we've got the third worst forecast for GDP growth or even contraction in 2020 and going into 2021. And the reasons are very clear, because even before COVID, we had our own challenges. And quite interestingly as well, if you look at 2020, out of the last 13 countries, go back to 2007 to 2020, out of those 13 years, 2020 was the year we had the highest or the worst ever load shedding year, which doesn't help. And given the fact that we were in lockdown and reduced economic activity, it does not bode well for our economic recovery efforts going forward, and which makes it quite important in terms of those proposed structural economic reforms coming out of NEDLAC. And I think one of the points that they're focusing on quite clearly is fixing Eskom, because we need steady supply of power to support rising economic growth. Overall, the Reserve Bank has done their part in terms of fiscal response, stimulus response, policy, rate cuts. Now it's the other side of the equation, which is the fiscal policy that we need to see come to the party. National Treasury, leading government's efforts with the other network partners, then need to come up with a very credible structural economic reform program that will take us out of this morass that we've been in, even pre-COVID.
All right, very interesting indeed, especially when it comes to the bank's efforts for the economic growth. We have to leave it at that due to time constraints. So thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you.
All right, well, there you have it. That's Owen Khumalo talking to us there about the latest. Owen Khumalo, I beg your pardon, about what came out of that monetary policy review for the month of October, talking about the stimulus package, of course, and the efforts by the Reserve Bank when it comes to the economic growth. So still on that front, just a reminder that at midnight tonight, the price of petrol will decrease by 32 cents a litre. The price of diesel will go down by between 90 cents and 93 cents a litre. Paraffin will go down by 76 cents a litre.